If you don't know Malcolm, he is an intelligence expert. You've seen him on MSNBC. He's a regular contributor. He's a regular on Bill Maher's Real Time. And he has a new book out, and it's a pretty frightening title. It's called They Want to Kill Americans. And you can't miss this podcast. It's coming up in about 3 minutes. Don't go anywhere. It's a Really American podcast coming up in just a couple minutes with Malcolm Nance. I'm Chip Franklin. Stay right there. Hey, welcome to the Really American podcast. I'm Chip Franklin. Today's guest will be Malcolm Nance. If you don't know Malcolm, he is an intelligence expert. You've seen him on MSNBC. He's a regular contributor. He's a regular on Bill Maher's Real Time. And he has a new book out, and it's a pretty frightening title. It's called They Want to Kill Americans. And you can't miss this podcast. It's coming up in about 3 minutes. Don't go anywhere. It's a Really American podcast coming up in just a couple minutes with Malcolm Nance. I'm Chip Franklin. Stay right there. Hey, welcome to the Really American podcast. I'm Chip Franklin. Today's guest will be Malcolm Nance. If you don't know Malcolm, he is an intelligence expert. You've seen him on MSNBC. He's a regular contributor. He's a regular on Bill Maher's Real Time. And he has a new book out, and it's a pretty frightening title. It's called They Want to Kill Americans. And you can't miss this podcast. It's coming up in about 3 minutes. Don't go anywhere. It's a Really American podcast coming up in just a couple minutes with Malcolm Nance. I'm Chip Franklin. Stay right there. Well, welcome to the show, everybody. This is Chip Franklin, and as you can see, Malcolm Nance is with us as well on this inauspicious. I guess actually it's perfect timing for your book because you've been talking about this a long time. Malcolm is not only a four-time New York Times bestseller, he's an intelligence analyst, MSNBC contributor, and this new book is called "They Want to Kill Americans." Let's just jump right in. First of all, Malcolm, who is they? I'm not hearing you. Malcolm, I'm not hearing you, bud. I'm still not hearing you. Let me see here. Well, that's not good. Can you hear me, Malcolm? You can hear me. I just can't. We're not hearing you. Well, that's not good. My apologies, everybody. While we figure that out here, let me play you a little bit of what we're talking about here. This is what we're dealing with right now on this anniversary. All right.
Can you hear me at all?
There we go. Now we got you, buddy. We got you with you.
Right.
Obviously, January the 6th means a lot to a lot of people, but for people such as yourself who served this country and has been a student of some renown studying our enemies, maybe it is ironic, maybe it's not, that the greatest enemy right now are these people that call themselves Americans. Who are the they in the title of they want to kill us?
Well, unfortunately, the insurrection and the insurgency that we're going through, the people who are involved are your neighbors. And, just where I'm at right now in upstate New York, another place where I live at in Philadelphia, we had several people who were arrested who took part in the insurrection. The people that I specify, that I notate at the beginning of my book in the title, they want to be Americans, are American citizens who have it in their head now that they are the arbiters of what is America and what is not. And they will enforce their vision of America, which is 30% of the population, on the other 60%, 70% of the population. And if they have to do it, they'll do it by force.
Okay. I mean, there's a lot of disturbing aspects to January 6th. Military, law enforcement involved in that. Is the disconnect that we're bringing the wrong people into the military? I mean, I know there's a lot of people that, and I'm one of them, doesn't think the military should go into police work. It's a totally different thing. One is escalation. One is supposed to be about de-escalation. What happened on January the 6th, before we get to Trump and the Republican Party, Fox News, and the rest, could that have happened without the support of people like Trump, Fox News, Newsmax, MSNBC, Drudge? Could that have happened before social media?
No, I don't think it could have happened before social media on a large scale, on the scale that it did. You might recall in the pre-internet age, if you wanted to hear all of the crazy rantings that you hear now with front page analysts on, Tucker Carlson and Glenn Beck, the way they do it on OANN with, these individuals and Newsmax. Back in the old days, somebody would have handed you a mimeograph at an airport or a train station, or you would have heard about it on an old BBS, right? A bulletin board. And you would have had to have printed out on a dot matrix printer all their crazy rantings. It was so slow. Information was faster if you put it in an envelope and mail it. Today, the individual who has a computer keyboard, who has an insane thought in his head, has the same range, depth, and in some instances, greater circulation than the New York Times. A good example is Dan Bongino, right? The former Secret Service officer, hardcore, rabid Trump supporter, has one of the top 10 broad podcasts on Apple. This guy actually has greater reach than the New York Times, Washington Post, and Wall Street Journal all put together every day. So, it's dangerous, the information sphere that they have, because it is a hermetically sealed bubble in which no reality gets in. So if their reality says kill, they are inclined to listen to their peers.
Is the Republican Party today a national security threat?
Let's just say that the threat inside the United States is a national security threat. And if the Republican Party continue to represent those interests, you have individuals like Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, Matt Gaetz, Paul Gosar, all pushing individuals to carry out crimes and justifying them by their positions, then they need to be held accountable as individuals. The party itself is corrupt. We all know this right now. They are teetering on the edge of this mass insanity in which they think Donald Trump and their racist, bigoted ideology of, white America first, rule over the others. This is not American democracy. And the problem is, Chip, they don't care that it is no longer American democracy.
Yeah, we're talking to Malcolm Nance. His new book is called They Want to Kill Americans. If Timothy McVeigh were alive today, are there Timothy McVeighs alive right now? And do we have to worry?
Well, yes, there are. I mean, there are so many incidents that were of a lower grade level of terrorist attack, but of the same, the equal level of derangement that Timothy McVeigh had. McVeigh was radicalized while in the Army. It was his platoon sergeant that he plotted the attack on the Murrah building with. He used his military skills to assemble the weapon, the weapon system, the car bomb that he had. He read a book called The Turner Diaries, a piece of fantasy fiction about an America where whites were essentially, enslaved, and that these underground terrorists called the Order, which, by the way, a group of white supremacists would actually form that terrorist group called the Order. But this terrorist group carries out a series of terrorist actions, murders, including a day of the rope where they mass murder white race traders who are liberals that support Negroes and other minorities. And they hang them from the ropes on the street. I have seen that term daily in right-wing extremists memes and ideology.
You spent a lot of time
are there other Timothy
studying
McVeighs
that
out there? Yes, they are. Have they got the weapon system to carry out what he did? Not yet, but that could happen anytime.
Here's a question my wife asks and her friends ask all the time is, when will the Republican Party stand up? Where are the other Liz Cheneys and Kinzingers?
And that's it. That's what you got. 7, 8, 10 of them.
Yeah.
That is the Republican Party, the old way that you might remember them.
What do you make of
Cruz? Early on in my military career, I was a small R Republican, Colin Powell style Republican, strong on national defense, liberal on social activities. Now we're considered far to the left, right?
Yeah.
We're deep part of the Democratic bench, especially African Americans. There does not exist the Republican Party as it existed before Donald Trump.
Okay, listen to Trump speak. I want you to listen. This is Trump campaigning 4 years ago, talking about violence.
Bye-bye. Look, see, he's smiling. See, he's having a good time. I love the old days, You know what I hate? There's a guy totally disruptive, throwing punches. We're not allowed to punch back anymore. I love the old days. You know what they used to do to guys like that when they were in a place like this? They'd be carried out on a stretcher, folks.
All right. Obviously, that sentiment is dangerous from a presidential candidate, and the president has said it many times too. Let's talk about that and what happened on January the 6th. How complicit are the quiet voices, the silence that we didn't hear from. We got Ted Cruz saying yesterday and being taken out by Fox that yes, January 6th was an act of terrorism, but he's being, attacked by the right. Where did that violence start? Did it start before Trump, or was Trump kind of the match to a bucket of flammable liquid just sitting there?
Well, the violence, and the threat of violence, the implicit fear that was instilled by people carrying around guns in open carry so that they could intimidate people at the exact same time, claim that they're carrying out a constitutionally protected right. That has always been around. The heyday of the militia era prior to today was the 1980s, where they had secret training camps, neo-Nazi groups all over Idaho, the Pacific Northwest, carrying out murders of individuals. But back then, it was quashed. The FBI infiltrated them. It was very hard for them to go beyond the mimeograph, sending letters and carrying out an occasional bank crime to fund their activities. Today, they had the support of the President of the United States, not the tacit support, the open support, to where when the George Floyd protests kicked off, these people all came together with long rifles in large quantities. I remember the protests that occurred in Louisville, Kentucky, and over 200 militiamen appeared on the streets doing their God-protected right to open carry, and were intimidating people with their weapons. That's all they're for. So the people that we have right now, the Oath Keepers, the Proud Boys, the Boogaloo Boys, the 3%ers, they have been organizing for years. And now in 2020 was their period to come forth. They conspired together. They trained together in the run-up of January 6th, but we're not done with them by a long shot.
All right,
New groups are going to form, and they're probably going to go out and kill Americans.
Talking to Malcolm Nance, and that's the title of his book, They Want to Kill Americans. He's a great writer, and you're really insightful on this. And it frightens a lot of people, obviously, I think, as it should. Not you, but the message. Let me ask you this. I said they want to kill Americans. How many of the 70 million people that voted for Trump are part of this, to steal Marjorie Taylor Greene's word, cabal? How many are part of this, and how much fear should the average American have, especially on the left, that if in fact 2022 does go red and 2024 does go red, what that holds? Is that a harbinger of even worse times?
Well, let me be frank. This election coming up in November 2022, it's a referendum on whether America exists the day after the election. If the Democrats can't keep those 5 seats that they have to fight for and get 10 or 15 more, if the Republicans take the House of Representatives or the Senate, it's done, especially the House of Representatives. The Republicans are targeting 40 seats. There won't be an American republic. What you're going to have is a constitutional autocracy. That's where you have the fake trappings of the Constitution of the United States. But 30% of this country is going to rule with an iron fist over the other 70%. And that's, I warned before the 2020 election that these paramilitaries, if Trump had won, would have come out as the unofficial paramilitary protectors of the campaign. But now they had to go underground. They're insurgents and insurrectionists and are being hunted. But if the laws change, the Congress changes next November, they will again be the honored paramilitary and will start parading themselves. How many are we talking about? 30% of a recent poll of Republican voters said that they believe violence is necessary to change the government. That's 25 million Americans.
But this, Malcolm, having been in the military, that people talk out of their ass all the time when they talk about violence, right? People have no idea what violence is. You punch 99% of Americans in the nose and they'll stop right away. The Democratic Party is in a quandary. Do they run on the economy and what they can do for people, what they've done for people, the advances with the vaccine and everything, or do they run with a crossbow in their hand? I don't. You know what? It's a real dilemma for
Yeah.
the Democrats right now.
Well, the Republicans don't care about your policy successes. The independents, most of whom are 50% of whom are Republicans, really don't care about your successes. They don't care about policy. We are in a war for the soul of America. The president of the United States finally came out and declared that this next election is going to have to be about defending American democracy, shaming those people who supported the 147 congressmen who voted to destroy democracy, getting rid of those or shaming those senators that came out and supported the insurrection. We are finding out now there was actually a written conspiracy where there was a strategy for that. What did they call it? The Green Bay sweep, where they were going to come in with 150 Republican congressmen and senators and put a halt to the election ballot counting process, then mobilize the National Guard and take control of the government. This was a very, very near thing. That is what we need to fight for this fall. If we can bring policy behind us. COVID may have, Omicron may have spiked. The economy is doing great. We just had a magic 300,000 new jobs pop up once they adjusted the numbers for December. There are many great successes in the Democratic Party. No one's listening to them because democracy is teetering on the edge. Give us a relief of that, and there will be a comfortable Democratic win this November.
I mean, there's obviously there's a lot here. Again, the book is called "They Want to Kill Americans." Malcolm Nance is our guest here on the Really American podcast. And I'm looking over here on our comments. It's going insane. But I want to ask you about was January 6th a dress rehearsal? In other words, and if so, what will it look like next? Will it be a quiet coup when they go into when these state legislatures say, you know what, we're not going to send these Democratic electors. We're going to send our own electors. And who the hell's going to stop them? Is the Supreme Court going to stop them? It seems to me like Roberts and the rest of the conservatives want to let the states handle their own elections the way they want. But if votes don't count, I guess my question for you is, what's going to happen to the Democratic Party after that? Will they take to the streets?
I for one, the only way we should take to the streets is in protest, of course. But why wouldn't we take to the streets now? Why wouldn't we every Friday have every indivisible group or every Democratic leaning group or Republican and independents that don't want to see the end of democracy? Why are they not out now petitioning their congressmen every week? Go have a block party, bring donuts, bring American flags. But for God's sake, for the next 10 months, don't just sit there and say, well, what's the next guy going to do? What's the Democrats going to do? What are you going to do? Today is the day to reaffirm your dedication to the Constitution of the United States. I went on Twitter and re-swore my oath of allegiance, but For the most part, you either fight for it or you're giving it up. Every person you don't register to vote and bring out to vote is you not fighting for it. One other thing, we do have the ability to influence senators. We do have the ability to influence congressmen. Even if your congressman is Republican, you have the ability to bring pressure. Bring pressure on the corporate groups that fund them. Bring pressure on the products of the corporations that give them money. Let them know that you're going to vote with your wallet too. This is the moment for true activism to defend what we have.
We're talking to Malcolm Nance. His book is "They Want to Kill Americans." When they say they, how many are they? What are we talking about? Two questions. Number one, how many are they? And who is other than Trump?
We're talking about the 70 million Americans that voted for Donald Trump. Just start right there. If you're talking about the potential of people who could kill somebody, look, 71 million Americans voted for Donald Trump. 0.1% of that is what? 71,000 Americans? 1/100% of that is 7,100 legal voting age Americans who could be armed. I mean, even if it just turns out to be 1/1000th of that, right? 710 guys with weapons can cause a lot of damage. What the only thing that is going to stop they from getting froggy and jumping and coming out and determining that they're going to play this fantasy of the movie Red Dawn, where they come out and start seizing buildings and government buildings, is if there is enough force from our ability to shame them, to ensure that they know there will be no support and there will be an active backlash. That is the only thing that will stop them. For about 2 months, it stopped the insurrectionists until the Republican Party saw that the average insurrectionist loved the uprising against the government. Then they all flipped back into Donald Trump's camp. We have to hold their feet to the fire. And I'm sorry, the Democrats have been pretty silent about this. And now Joe Biden has kicked off the campaign to defend democracy. Now it must be sustained and pushed on a minute-to-minute basis.
Okay, real quick. So Garland came out. You know, we hadn't seen that guy forever, right?
Right.
And he came out strong. And Trump backed off. Why do you think Trump backed off from giving a speech today? Who has his ear?
Well, you know, to tell you the truth, I think it's Sean Hannity and Laura Ingraham. Might even have been Tucker Carlson. These are people who are stage people. They're not journalists, but they play them on TV. And they know that if Biden had come out and given that speech today that he gave, which was awesome, I think the best speech of his career, the most important speech of the 21st century so far, and quite possibly half of the 20th century. That speech, if Trump had come out at 5 p.m. today, it would have proven every word Joe Biden said. And it would have been a great juxtaposition to show you that Donald Trump is mentally ill. There is something wrong with him. His narcissism is so inflamed that he would rather burn the country to the ground. When he comes out and gives his rally speech, he's going to have his people around him. And it's going to look like a good old boy good time. That's for them to mobilize themselves. But it's going to be juxtaposed with what Biden said. And he is still going to come off looking like the fool that he is.
Who is the second most dangerous person in America today?
That's a good question. And to tell you the truth, it is not Ron DeSantis. It is not Ted, it is not Ted Cruz. It's Steve Bannon and his broadcast, the Steve Bannon broadcast. This man is an open fascist, okay? This is the guy who went around Europe and tried to create a school for what he called conservative, essentially authoritarian conservative gladiators, where he was going to train conservatives from around the world and send them home to destroy democracy in their own countries. An American doing that. Disgraceful. He went around Europe and he gave that famous speech in Paris where he told the right-wing authoritarians there, when they call you a racist, embrace it. When they call you a bigot, bring it closer to you. Let them know you're a bigot and you're proud. This man is dangerous. I mean, when I wrote my first book about the Trump campaign, Plot to Hack America, I went through, from an intelligence community perspective, all of the actors, ideologues that would support Putin's plot to essentially destroy American democracy by rigging its elections. Steve Bannon was the only American I included in the Russian pantheon. That man is dangerous.
It's amazing to me that we can't even have that conversation anymore because so many people dismiss it. The connection with Russia, which goes back now 30 years, and not to mention the Saudis, Khashoggi, the money trail, Manafort in Ukraine. I mean, it's literally too much. Right? It's too much, So when I see Ron Johnson, when I see Clyde, talking about a tourist visit, and I hear Johnson talking about these are good patriots, and I hear Tucker Carlson last night say this was not a terrorist attack. When I see this equivocating, it makes me feel like that it's going to be much harder to win than I ever thought. I used to think that we could just remove Trump, but I don't think that. You know who my thought is the second most dangerous person is Rupert Murdoch.
Oh,
I mean,
well,
right?
yeah, he owns the conglomerate. Of course, he owns the vehicle. How can I put it? He owns the bloodstream in which they've injected the poison, right?
No,
And all
yeah.
he's waiting for is for it to go to the heart. He loves the gladiatorship of what's going on here. I mean, if murders could be engineered without any fingerprints, he would do it. I'm certain. In fact, what was it that they had a scandal related to that in England, if I'm not mistaken? Not murders, but critical incidents in which they knew things were going to happen. Look, that is entertainment for them, infotainment, as they like to call it. But I'm telling you, if even though they are the venal system that is carrying the poison itself. Look, Steve Bannon the other day said that they are out openly, said that they will change the laws in order to ensure, and I swear to God, he used these words, a 100-year Republican Party. The last group that used that phrase was the Nazis with the 100-year Reich.
You're right.
This is what we're dealing with. I really feel like I'm up against some of the worst Bond villains of my past intelligence career, and now they run America, or they want to run America again.
I watch Carlson and Hannity, but more Carlson because he's so much better at Hannity. He does it so well. And he's talking about, how all these FBI agents and intelligence agencies were in the crowd on January 6th, egging them on. We've talked about this before. I grew up in D.C. My dad was D.C. police. My mom was a district attorney, worked for the district attorney's office, federal district attorney's office for 30 years. I grew up in a neighborhood of FBI agents and their kids. These were people that worked their asses off to protect America. Were they perfect? No, but they weren't the Hoover FBI. It was a post-Hoover FBI. These were people that really cared. They stopped Walker, and we were perilously close to being attacked by the Russians after the Walker espionage case. Right. I mean, these are great people. So for me to hear Tucker Carlson talk about these people in the crowd are FBI agents, what do we know? I mean, obviously there were FBI agents out there. There were intelligence people out there trying to watch it. But when you hear this, what is your response?
Well, first off, there were FBI there. We know there were FBI there because they were part of the national security event that was happening there. The FBI bomb squads, the render safe teams, the FBI hostage rescue team. By the way, those are the people who came and got Mike Pence's Secret Service detail out of the building. Yeah. So you can't say that. Was there one or two law enforcement police on the perimeter? Sure. But there were 40,000 people at that protest. By the way, when I debated in quotes, Ben Shapiro on the Bill Maher show last August, he insisted that those numbers were a lie. I mean, they came from the Park Service. 40,000 people were on the mall. 10,000 people marched on the Capitol, and as many as 2,000 penetrated the building and were involved in active fighting with the Capitol Hill Police and the Washington, D.C. police. They live in this bubble of non-reality, and they say, that didn't happen, that didn't happen. You're going to tell me there were 40,000 FBI agents? You're going to tell me there were 10,000 FBI agents? You're going to tell me Antifa was only the whites from Antifa were there and were pretending to wear Trump hats and were paying $13.99 for Made in China, Make America Great hats? Get out of here. You know what? It doesn't matter what the truth is. They won't believe it. And here's what they'll believe. Prison terms. That's what they'll believe. Yeah. But the FBI and the Department of Justice gave out 71 2-week prison sentences, not even felonies, misdemeanors. It's utterly amazing to me. So if the FBI is working for anybody, they're not working for those guys.
Right. And of course, we go all the way back to Bush v. Gore. And we talk about, something being stolen in broad daylight. And that was Catherine Harrison in Florida. It was stolen. I mean, Trump I mean, Trump, but Gore won Florida. We know that, but it just didn't happen. This, on the other hand, is done like in such broad daylight. They're like, come and get us if you don't like it. And we'll also kick your ass if you get near us. We will use violence. Where does the military stand on this? Where's Milley? Where will they stand moving into 2024 if, in fact, they decide, you know what? Well, obviously, with Biden in, he'll control the military, you would hope. But we learned from January 6th last year, there are a lot of people inside the military that are sympathetic to Trump and this right-wing extremism. Well, I want to ask you, without giving away the end of your book, where this goes. I mean, The Plot to Betray America was a great book, but this one seems to be at an even a more pivotal time. We are on the cusp of the fall of democracy, literally, and it could happen. Moving forward like this, what does the average person do, and how do we prepare ourselves? We talked about civil action, getting on the street and all. Is that it? Is that what we can do? And the Democrats as well?
Yeah, civil action is all you're going to do. All right.
Okay.
I don't want to hear any of these people. I have people
No.
calling me all the
I
time,
meant like,
should I buy guns? And no, don't give up on democracy. I'm a Philadelphian, right? Yeah. I was born and raised under the Liberty Bell, okay, in Independence Hall. I can't remember how many times I was taken there in elementary school. I believe in the American experiment, but let's stop it from being an experiment. Let's get that voting rights, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act passed, and codify American rights into law. This isn't a privilege anymore. It's not a debate about privilege. Yes, of the Capitol insurgents or insurrectionists, 20% were former military, law enforcement, or including some active duty and military. The active duty people have been handled. I mean, they have been handled with an utter ruthlessness that you can't imagine in the civilian world. The military does not tolerate idiots well. Trust me, as a senior enlisted person, I was always on the lookout for the guy that was going to be trouble. As an institution, General Milley came out and made his speech, which we think will go down in military history, about the armed forces of the United States does not get involved in political debates. But then he said, but we have sworn our oath to the Constitution, and we will protect and defend the Constitution, not any one man. So if some of these people, there's not going to be a civil war like there was in 1861, where military units separate and the Oklahoma Guard goes out and starts answering only to the governor, and they start seizing federal buildings. Then you're going to find out what a unified volunteer armed force is like, because we don't suffer idiots well at all. Law enforcement, for all the conservatism imbued in that, they don't like unrest, and they definitely don't like people with guns running around shooting people. They like to be the arbiters of law and order. So the system is rigged against anyone that wants to commit violence.
Good.
But you know what? We have to be prepared for it anyway.
Who needs to go to jail?
Go. Who needs to go to jail? Look, you talked about the Bush versus Gore. Do you remember the Brooks Brother riot?
Yeah.
That's when all of these Republican staffers came out and attacked the office of where the voting was, where the ballot counting was going, in order to stop the vote. That was organized by Roger Stone. There's suspicions that this, along with Steve Bannon and all the rest of the people in the Willard Hotel war room, were carrying out a massive national level Brooks Brothers riot. Now, I don't know. I'm going to let the Justice Department do my talking for me when it comes to who should go to jail. But we have already proven. Peter Navarro came out on Ari Melber's show 2 days ago and essentially confessed that there was a giant conspiracy and that they had hundreds of Republican congressmen and senators who were going to collapse the electoral process and install Trump as a dictator. Every one of these people needs to be investigated, for what role they may have played in trying to end American democracy.
In a year, though, and you and I both know this, that if this next House of Representatives goes red, they're going to impeach Biden. They'll definitely stop whatever we're doing right now. I mean, we've talked about how important it is, but to me, it opens the door even further. I mean, there'll be nothing stopping Trump then. And if, again,
no, there won't be.
Yeah.
There will be nothing to stop Donald Trump. Here's what their plan is. Professor Jason Johnson on MSNBC last May predicted that they would take back the House with the intent of making Donald Trump Speaker of the House. And I think they will. They are saying it out loud. Ted Cruz said it just a couple of months ago. Make him Speaker of the House. Let him humiliate Nancy Pelosi's former position. Use the Congress as a weapon to destroy the foundations of American democracies. Engineer laws that are illegal, but let the Supreme Court arbitrate them years later after they finish installing him as president of the United States by rigging all of the elections. They say this, not me. They're saying this. And this is why this election is far more important. This is no run-of-the-mill election. This is a down ballot, vote blue or you lose it all election.
Let me show you a comment here. We got hundreds of these online, but this is an interesting one, and I think it goes along our rights. This is Dimples writes, DeSantis passed a bill where Florida police can arrest a group of 3 people protesting as long as the officer says they were instigating a riot. He has the state rigged already. Again, I just go down this list here. The trouble we're in. It's high. To me, it's frightening on a lot of different levels. Let me ask you one last thing here. Again, the book is called "They Want to Kill Americans." You and I have been talking for about 4 or 5 years now, and this has been kind of a maturation. I know you probably didn't want it to go in this direction, but this is the direction it's headed. The book, we were talking in the last year as you were putting this together. Is there a part of the ending of this book that is hopeful, and what does that entail?
I've written 4 other books about the Trump era. Well, let me rephrase. I've written 3 other books about the Trump era. Every one of them ends with a very, very uplifting epilogue based on my experience as a child who grew up in Philadelphia in a military family that served nonstop since 1864. In the armed forces. Not in this book. There is no happy ending to my book. I ended on a terrible, horrific statement that was made by somebody who was in law enforcement. And there is no happy ending at this point. That book is a warning. It is all the players, all the people that could be involved in a future insurgency. I don't say civil war, because it's going to be so low grade. It'll be at the state level. They won't try to take the Capitol again. But nothing says that they won't try to take a state house and the governor suddenly supports them. They start taking federal buildings, and they're backed by their local police and National Guard. That is an insurgency, a series of insurrections backed by their political allies on Capitol Hill, who will be encouraging them to take back America for themselves. So no happy ending this time.
I think of Jamie Raskin, who I've met back when I was in Maryland working at WBAL a couple times. And he's a good man and lost his son, as you know, that story. It's horrible. Yet he came on January the 6th to do his job. And his kid was 4 days dead. And then he had to endure that, and I've talked to a bunch of Democrats that were on the floor that day. They're all much calmer than I would be had I been in that position. I'm not advocating violence or anything like that. I'm saying that I think we also have to get our facts and stand up to people that spread misinformation. We have to be prepared. We have to be able to make those the statements they have naked and clear to everybody that they're lies. But right now we find ourselves in such a desperate situation. I mean, I even thought about moving to Canada, dude. I'm not serious. I looked into, and I have friends up there, and they all like, come on up, man. We're going to lock the gate though, after a few, you get up here. I mean, I know I'm an American. I grew up in DC, you grew up in Philadelphia. But I don't know. I honestly don't know what to do. I can't wait to finish the book, and move forward. But I think it's appropriate right now to be depressed and a little pissed off, maybe a lot pissed off.
Let me say this. If you were depressed about this or demotivated, today is the day to stand up and commit yourself to defending this. Okay? There's no running away from this. There's no going to Canada. I mean, that's what they did in The Handmaid's Tale, right? I mean, you're going to give this country up to a bunch of yokels?
Yeah, but I mean, come on. You know this. I grew up.
They can't even spell Constitution, much less care what it says inside. Okay? I'm not, today on Twitter, I swore an eternal oath that I will protect and defend the Constitution of the United States, and that I will die before I let a dictator of Donald Trump take control of this government through re-engineering the vote. Wow. I will stand up. I will mobilize people. I will bring people to the polls. I will call my congressmen, senators, and I will make myself a general nuisance if that's what it takes. But you know what I'm not going to do? I'm not going to roll over on this one. None of you should. Today is the day. What do they say in the movie? Today is your Independence Day, right? Are you going to stand up and go out into the soft good night? No. You're going to get mobilized and you're going to take it to them. And if you're in a Democratic leaning district, lean on your representative, then go to a district that's run by a Republican and help people lean on them.
Well, the book is called They Want to Kill Americans. You can get on Amazon right now and pre-order, right?
Yep.
Okay. And Malcolm Nance has been our guest. Please stay well, my friend. You look comfortable. I know, now we're out of the holidays and we're all, kicking our shoes and getting ready to move forward. So I look forward to speaking with you again, and please be safe. Okay.
Okay. Take care.
All right. Thank you, buddy. Again, that is Malcolm Nance, who has been nice enough to spend his time with us. I'm Chip Franklin. This is KGO. Let me just say, I want to do something. If you got a couple seconds with you, I'd like to play you my video before we sign off on this podcast. And we do this twice a week, and it's going to change in different formations as we move forward. But this is a video that I just did today about January 6th and whether or not as a dress rehearsal. Watch this, if you would, please.
The Democrats were behind it all.
Was January the 6th a terrorist attack?
It is an anniversary of a violent terrorist attack.
That's Ted Jellyfish Spine Cruz.
I'm proud to have worked hand in hand with President Trump.
And Merrick Garland, remember him? Apparently he's alive.
Those involved must be held accountable.
But is it too late?
The Republican Party has to make a choice.
Was January the 6th an insurrection, a riot, a terrorist attack?
We're storming the Capitol!
Or maybe just a dress rehearsal?
Reporting of it is a giant hoax.
Republicans are already hard at work monkeying with the Electoral College, telling red states to choose Trump, regardless of the vote.
While that real meeting of the real electors was happening, fake electors were also meeting.
And who's going to stop them? These guys? January the 6th was a dress rehearsal for the overthrow of our democracy. These are the traitors.
Those are people that love this country.
It was a normal tourist visit.
It was not a violent terrorist attack. Sorry.
This is their leader.
To the Capitol.
And this is their goal.
What are you prepared to do?
And that's a good question.
It's all fake news.
Shut the f*** up, Donnie.
Yippee-ki-yay, mother. Damn right. Winning.
Well, thanks again for Malcolm Nance, and thank you guys for being part of the podcast. You can email me at chip@chipfranklin.com. Of course, you can see this podcast in its entirety on Twitter in just a few minutes. We're going to get it up there, and we will, and also on YouTube. Well, if you're watching this on YouTube, you know as well. That'll be its home. All right. Till next time, I'm Chip Franklin. Thanks again, and follow us on Really America at Really America 1 on Twitter. Talk to you soon.